Welcome back to the vlog. This is going to cover 2 sessions of poker at Capital Casino and 1 session of Zeus waiting for his Christmas gift and opening his package. So sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. Very first hand of the day, we decided to do a $15 bomb pot, brand new table. Got 500 in my stack. Flop comes out, King, King, 5, rainbow. Interesting flop. I don't know what I have yet, but when it gets checked around to me and being in position, I look down at ace, king. I decide to give this a little slow play and check it back. Hopefully someone will take a stab at it, and that's exactly what happens when the 4 of clubs comes. Player leads out for $34, and another player puts in the call for the 34. Now, being a bomb pot, they could have any 2 cards, but most likely it's either some sort of flush draw, straight draw, or a pocket pair above the 5s. I'm just not going to give them any cheap draws, so I decided to make it 150. If they have a king, I figure I'll get plenty of action. If they have pocket 5s or pocket 4s, yeah, they're going to give me action too, but not the kind I like. Both players ended up quickly folding, so I don't think either one had too much, but we got a few extra chips in our stack, and that's a good way to start off the day. All right, we're in the hijack, and the player to our right raises to $20. Something I don't normally play, but I decided to play 10-8 suited from the hijack. Get called from the player behind me, 1 from the big blind, and then 1 from a limper. So we're going 5 ways to this flop with 101 in the center. Flop comes out 10-6-3 with 2 spades and 1 diamond. So I flop top pair with some straight and flush draws available. It gets checked over to me, and that's a green light for me to bet. I decided to go half pot, $50. Player to my left takes a peek at his hand again. I don't think the card's changed any, but they finally decide to release it, and now it's back to the player in the big blind, who is a vlog watcher and supporter, and they decided just to rip it all in for $197. Now, if they're raising for value with a hand like a 10 with a better kicker, or possibly a set of 3s or 6s, I'm in the world of hurt, and I need a lot of help to win this. But there are so many straight and flush draws available, 4-5, some sort of combo draw with 9-8 suited, 7-8 suited, even something like a pair in a flush draw, like 7-6 of spades. And I just saw this person make a raise with a pair in a flush draw on the previous hand. I wasn't involved in it, but I was paying attention, so I'm thinking that I have to take that into account. So after going over everything, I decided that for $147, I think I'm going to be forced to make this call. Even though I think there's probably a better chance that they have a hand that is better than mine at this point, I can't let it go. So I flip in the chip. They show ace 10, so I'm way behind, but I get a miracle 8 on the turn and a king on the river. So I got my 20% equity this time. Next 4 times I have this hand, I won't make it. All right, I'm in the cutoff with Queen Jack of Diamonds. There were like 3 people limping in, so I decided to race to 25 in position. Player in the small blind puts in the quick call. Player in middle position also puts in the call. And when it comes to the player to my right, they also put in the call. So we're going to go 4 ways to this flop with $106 in the center, and we get a flop of 10-8-6 with 1 diamond. So we got a gut shot to the straight, and we also have a backdoor flush draw and 2 overcards. But I ain't betting this sucker because I got 3 opponents and that hits their range pretty hard. Turn card comes as a 5 of spades, and now the small blind leads out really small. So I'm not quite sure what to make of this. $25 bet seems very small for this particular hand. So either they have the nuts or they're trying to get a cheap draw. So I go ahead and I call for the 25, and the river card bricks out with a 6 of hearts. Now the person in the small blind checks, the other player checks, and I think they just don't have much. So I'm going to go try to steal this thing. I don't want someone with something like ace 7 or ace 9 to win with ace high. I know my line doesn't make sense, but sometimes you just got to go for it. So I ended up betting $100 and it seemed to work. They both folded. One of the regular players thought I was full of it though. This is definitely the most interesting hand of the day, but unfortunately my camera had a little issue with its storage. Recording everything in 4K, you use it up quite fast, and it turned off in the middle of the hand. So bear with me while I go through this. There's 2 limpers, and then the player raises to 15. I'm on the button with 2 9s. I can either call or raise. This time I decided to call, and so do the other 2 players. So we're going 4 ways to a flop that comes queen, 5, 6, all clubs. I do not have a club in my hand, but when they check to me, I think that someone would probably bet a queen here, and if they had a big club, they might lead with that too. So I'm going to try to steal it here for $50. The player in the big blind decides on calling for the $50. The other 2 players fold out, and now we're headed to the turn card. The player leads into me for $40 into this $160 pot. Very small bet. Last time they seemed to be on a draw when they did this, so I don't think they have a made hand yet, and I don't want to give them a cheap draw at it. So I ended up raising to $140. Yeah, it's a little aggressive, but I like it. They put in the quick call, and we get to see a river card that comes as an ace of spades. Now this is dangerous in case they had the ace of clubs, they now made something. They checked it over to me, and I'm thinking, I can't get any value. I check it back. They showed that they had the jack of clubs and the 3 of spades. So they had a flush draw and an open-end straight draw, and they missed the world. But I got a little extra value by raising with my pair of 9s instead of just flat calling. It's a risky play, but then again, I get a little bit more reward when I get it right. So after playing for a little over 3 hours, I decided to go home and see if I can get some of that video stuff off my phone to make room for some new video stuff. So once I had it uploaded to my laptop, I was able to successfully come back the following day and play a little more poker. Hijack opens for 15. Cutoff puts in the call for the 15. I look down at 2 aces and make it 55. I should probably go bigger than this, but I was early in the game and I wasn't quite sure how they were playing yet. Both players end up putting in the call. So it's a pretty good sized pot already. And we're going 3 ways to a flop with 169 in the center. Flop comes out 10-6 deuce with 2 clubs. So pretty good flop for a pair of aces. I do not have the ace of clubs. Both players end up checking over to me, and I bet out for $75. Player in the hijack thinks for a while before putting in a call for the 75. He's a very good player, so I'm keeping my eye on him. The next player in the cutoff also puts in the 75. He doesn't have to think as long for this, so taking that into consideration when the turn card comes, a 4 of hearts. Looks like a pretty good blank in my book. Both players ended up checking it over to me, and with $370 left in my stack, I'm just going to go ahead and get it all in here. It's a little less than a pot-sized bet, and there's quite a chance that someone might have some sort of flush draw. So I rip it in. First player doesn't think long at all and releases his hand, and then the next one goes into the tank, and he's saying that he doesn't think he can let this one go. After about a minute, he ends up tossing in the call, and we see a river card of a 9 of spades. Looks like a very safe card. Dodged all the clubs. I turn my hand over, and he flashes that he had the 5, 6 of clubs. So straight draw, flush draw with a pair. So on the flop, we were basically a 50-50 flip. On the turn, I was a little bit more of a favorite, but he still had a ton of outs. There was a $12 straddle and get a caller in front of me, and I'm out back on the button with 7-6 suited. I could raise here sometimes or just call. This time I decided just to call and see a flop. In position with a hand that plays well against multi-way players. Why not? Flop comes out King 10-4. 2 hearts and a spade. So we flop absolutely nothing, but it doesn't look like anyone is really interested. So I figure a good sized bet here would probably take it down. I end up putting out a bet for $45. First two players fold rather quickly. The last player actually thought for a while, kind of peeked at his cards again, trying to decide whether he wanted to fight for this thing, and then let it go. I got a late start on filming this one. We've been playing with a $20 straddle for a while. There's a $20 straddle. Player opens for the $20, and I raise to 75 with two queens from the low jack. I get a call from the button, the straddler, and the initial limper. We head off to a flop with 304 in, and it comes out king, queen, 5, all clubs. So good news is we have a set. Bad news is they're all clubs out there. First two players check, and I bet 175. The player on the button just rips his remaining stack in. Yeah, he could have a flush here, but with the stack sizes and the pot size, I'm not going anywhere at this point. So when the other players end up folding out, I go ahead and make the quick call. Hoping that the board will pair, we get to see the run out, which comes a deuce of diamonds. So far, okay. River card comes is a 7 of clubs, and he celebrates by flipping over ace jack with the ace of clubs. So he flopped a straight draw, flush draw, and he got there on the end. Kind of makes up for that last one where we're up against a big draw and they didn't get it. So easy come, easy go. And yes, it's never fun losing a $900 pot on the river. We have 8 players in this bomb pot for $15. So we got $120 in the center, and the flop comes out 10-3 deuce, all rainbow. I guess check to the player to the right of me, who ends up betting out for $65. I look down at bottom 2 pair and a backdoor flush draw. Have to put in a raise here. You don't want to be just calling with this particular hand, so I make it $200. If everybody folds, I'm completely happy. If I get one caller, that's great. If I get raised, I'm going to cry. Anyways, fold it back around to the player to my right, and he thinks long and hard before flipping over that he had a 10 in his hand and decided just to let it go. So I'm very happy just to take down this pot the way it is. And for our final hand, the player on the other end of the table has been making it live 20 just about all day long. It's folded to me in the cutoff. I decided to raise to 60. Everyone else folds and he puts in the call. So we're heads up to a flop. That comes 9-6 deuce, rainbow. So not ideal for my range. He checks it over to me. I'm going to use some pot control and just check this one back. He has a tendency to want to stab at things if you show weakness. And I'm sure he will be more than willing to take a shot. Anyway, the 10 of spades comes on the turn, and now he decides to bet $80. Again, he could have anything. Yes, he could have a 10, he could have a 9 or a 6, something that beats my hand. But just by the way he put out the bet makes me feel like he's not quite as strong. So I make the call, and we're going to see a river. I could be representing a flush draw here, or just overcards like king, queen, queen, jacks, stuff like that. River card comes as a king of diamonds. So the flush draw bricks out. And now my opponent thinks long and very hard. And I think he's trying to figure out whether he wants to bluff or not. And after a long tank, he decides on a check. When he checks, I'm thinking he has some showdown value. I check back. I don't think I'm going to be liking my hand. I feel better if he actually bet. He says he has nothing and turned over 5-3 of clubs. So I win this with a pair of 4s. I'm glad I didn't catch a 4 in the end, because that would have cost me a whole bunch of money. So for the 2 days, I ended up winning $440 the first day and $450 the second day. I'm happy with the results. Of course, if those pocket queens stood up, that would have been a much, much better win. But, you know, sometimes they just get beat. And this was one of those times. Anyway, really do appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for all the support. And we're going to have some Zeus Christmas stuff coming up next. And I got to tell you, he's just the cutest dog ever. Anyway, until next time, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here again.
That's the one with the most white on it?
No.
Got the fishy.
What you got, Susie?
That one, he only wants
I'm
that one.
so happy. You finally